Welcome to the Radical Success Podcast, where we focus on internal transformation to experience external results. I'm your host and coach, Doreen Rainey. Join me each week for insightful messages and powerful interviews to equip you to take bold, courageous, and radical action to live the life you want and deserve. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Radical Success Podcast. I am your host and your coach, Doreen Rainey, and this is where we have the conversation about what it means to have an internal transformation to experience external results. Having been coaching for almost 10 years, I have become 100% fascinated about how some people can get strategies and information and tools and insights and run with it, while others seem to struggle to implement. And many times their solution for that is to just go get more information. And so I believe that part of this internal transformation that we all need is around fear. And I am 100% excited to have a guest on my show today who knows a thing or two, or 5 or 10 or 20, when it comes to fear. And so please welcome to the Radical Success Podcast, Rhonda Britten.
Thank you, Doreen. And oh my gosh, what an amazing gift you're giving to people, the internal transformation for the external results. That there has never been a more true statement. So I love it. And I'm so excited to be here and talk about fear, my favorite subject.
Yes, and it's in the name. You are the founder of the Fearless Living Institute. And I first connected with Rhonda, oh my goodness, it's probably been maybe 7 years now when I was hosting my Get Radical Women's Conference. And I always knew that fear was something that we all constantly have to address. And what better person to do that than the person who always knows about managing, dealing with, and understanding fear. And so, Rhonda, tell us a little bit about the Fearless Living Institute and why do you believe that it's your calling to put this message out there?
Well, you hit the right word, calling. It is definitely my calling. It was never, it's like, if you would have said to me, 30 years ago, like, oh, Rhonda, you're going to teach people about fear, I would have looked at you like you were a crazy person. And I don't think I'm alone on that. I think a lot of times when we get our calling, when we really get that message that we know what we're supposed to do, I think so many times we run away from it in the beginning because it's frightening. Like, how is my life going to change? How can I do this? Who am I to do this? And I know when Fearless Living came through me and was gifted to me from that thing beyond us, I was like, you've picked the wrong person, buddy. I don't think you know what you're doing, right? Because I really didn't know. I didn't own what I knew, and I didn't trust myself at that moment that I had gone through so much, i.e. transformation, internal transformation, in order to live this message. And finally, about 6 months later, it, got into my thick skull with a lot of support and a lot of coaching and a lot of mentoring. And Fearless Living really is, for me, the key to unlock potential. Because, to turn that potential into, quote unquote, what you say, those external results. Because for me, I never really said I was scared or afraid. Like, I didn't walk around saying I'm scared or afraid, but I did walk around being overwhelmed. I did walk around with negative self-talk. I did walk around beating myself up. I did walk around thinking I'm not good enough. I did walk around with anxiety. I did walk around with procrastination. I did walk around with perfectionism, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And all of those things, what I came to understand and know, and now what I teach, is that those are all symptoms of fear. And so unless you address what I call the core fear, unless you address the core fear, those symptoms are going to keep sprouting up in your life. So you might get, you might master procrastination, but then something else will pop up. So Fearless Living really came through my own internal transformation of, reading books and going to workshops and doing all this stuff. And ultimately, even though I was learning a lot, I never ultimately in the middle of the night felt good about myself. So I would learn a strategy, like you said in your opening, I would learn get a tool, but it fundamentally didn't change my opinion of myself.
Right. I want to catch that nugget, because as someone who has worked with thousands of people to get results, a lot of times what I hear is, I just need accountability. I just need support. I just need to manage my procrastination. And sometimes people are unwilling to really classify what they are experiencing as being a barrier as just good old-fashioned fear.
You are such a wordsmith. That is so beautiful. And you are right on. I mean, because again, if you would have asked me before I started Fearless Living, if I had fear, I would have looked at you like you had two heads. I do not have any fear. I'm, even back then, even when I was my most dysfunctional, when I was trying to kill myself 3 times and I was suicidal 3 times, tried to kill myself suicidal. And when I was an alcoholic and when I got 3 DUIs, and I could go on and trying to get through my own horrible past, through that all, I never thought I was afraid. And it was only when I was willing to quit using my fear responses as my excuse and as my punishment, I procrastinate, I'm a perfectionist, quit blaming myself and shaming myself for those fear responses. And instead, like you said, face that really the thing that we must name, which is fear. It was the only way that I could get past my past. It was the only way I could get through it and over it. And when I started understanding on a cellular level how fear works, not just a neuroscience level, not just an intellectual level, but really understand on a cellular level how fear wreaks havoc in our life, all because it loves us, by the way, all because it loves us. I started to have a relationship with fear that wasn't contemptuous. It was, friend to friend. It was cohort to cohort. It was colleague to colleague. And I started understanding what fear needed and wanted and what I needed and wanted. And we started to create this symbiotic relationship, and it no longer stopped me. Instead, I was able to use it in order to access the parts of the internal transformation that I was denying myself. Just like you said in the opening, why do some people struggle? I think it's that they're denying, like you said, that classifying it as fear and really facing that, if I open this business, my friendships might change. If I open this business and I make 3 times the money my mother did, I'm going to feel guilty. Oh, wait, if I open this business, if I make this money, if I fall in love, if I get married, oh my gosh, my life's going to change. And people say they want their life to change, but there is consequences to those changes that I think most of us are petrified that we will lose love, lose respect, lose connection, lose belonging, lose our tribe, and that we will be left alone. So, fundamentally inside of us, we're like, I'm not willing to take that risk, even though on the outside, we're like, I want to take the risk. But inside, we're like, no,
You the very first time you spoke at one of my events, while I had read your book and I had watched you on Starting Over, I did have an expectation that your messaging around fear would be couched in that just move past it. You just have to do it. You just have to face it. And the truth is, there's so much depth to where our fears come from.
That's right.
How we can expose them and then how we can manage them. And so when you think about what are some core, like if we peeled away those symptoms, that procrastination, that, all of those symptoms that show up with fear, if we were to peel all of that away at its core, what would you find fear is?
Fear is first of all, fear is a mechanism that is part of our neurobiology. So it is part of how we're made. Okay. So if you ever read a flyer or listen to a teacher say like, I'm going to help you get rid of fear forever, the next question I want you to ask them is, are you going to give me a lobotomy? Because that's the only way, right?
Right.
And so I think the falseness of false teachers who don't understand how fear really works, because fear's become a cliche, right? And when they don't really know how it works and they tell you to just get through it, they're actually not understanding how fear fundamentally works. And they're just giving you a one-trick pony to get through it. And it doesn't get through it. If you would have asked me at my height of dysfunction or my height of desire without the self-esteem and the self-confidence to go with it, if you would have said I was afraid, no, I would have said not. And if you would have told me to feel the fear and do it anyway, you know what I would have done? I would have been like a bull in a china shop and just broken my life up into pieces and all justifying it along the way. So when you peel back fear, so again, I just want to go back for a minute. All those fear responses are a function, are symptoms of, the core fear. So just like a heart attack is a symptom that you have blockage in your heart, right? Like the heart attack is just like, hey, by the way, you got blockage in your heart, right? High cholesterol is like, hey, by the way, you got too much stuff in your body, got too much sugar, got too much, et cetera. Like, hey, just want to let you know, so we want to deal with the cause, not the symptoms. And so I actually thought what you were going to say is like, what's left when you really address fear? And what I was going to say as you were talking, I was like going to go, you know what you're left with? You're left with peace of mind. You're left with trusting yourself. You're left with the ability to make decisions, because fear keeps you confused. It keeps you wondering. It keeps you changing your mind. There's no trust in yourself. You want to trust others. And, it's like you got to trust yourself. You got to make decisions, and you got to trust those decisions, and you got to move forward in those decisions. But when fear is on the playing field, Doreen, it's very confusing. And you go A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, C, A, B. And then you beat yourself up when it doesn't work. You blame yourself when it doesn't work. So, when you understand how fear truly works in your neurobiology, the shame dissipates, the blame goes away, the negative self-talk minimizes and disappears. And you're left with the space to create a future that is unavailable to you when fear is on patrol. You might fantasize about it, you might wish it, but it's unavailable to you.
In one of the previous episodes, I talked about the cost that we have to pay for success, and that there's two sides to that coin. And when it comes to fear has two sides. You're either going to manage it so that you can be free, so that you can have peace, so you can trust yourself, so you can own your gifts and talents, or you're going to succumb to that fear and feel that frustration and shame and guilt and overwhelm. And many times when we take this journey, when we decide that we're going to explore this thing called fear, even if we don't quite believe yet that we are in fear,
That's right.
We're just going to listen to Rhonda, we're going to listen to Doreen, and we're going to ask ourselves, what am I in fear of? Where did that fear come from? I know for you that it's all in the story, and it's all in what you've experienced over time. And so can you share a little bit about your history, your past, how you got to a place where you wanted to commit suicide, how you got to a place where alcoholism and DUIs were a part of your life?
Yeah, part of my everyday life.
And the moment that you recognize, because what I want this podcast to do is not just necessarily give answers, but to also inspire people to question. Mm-hmm. And so can I question the fact that it may not be procrastination, it's really fear? Can I question the fact that I'm really analyzing and checking all my angles? No, you're really afraid to make a decision. So can you share a little bit about the journey and the moment that you realize this is something I have to address?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, what I know to be true is that fear, your core fear is developed by the time you're 5. And, the other thing that research has now shown is that fear is handed down, many times is handed down through our DNA. So there's no one moment where your wheel of, what I call the wheel of fear, is created. It, like you said, it's over experiences, it's over time, it's about a story, and it's through our DNA. So, but for me personally, why alcohol and suicide and DUIs were part of my journey is that, I grew up in a family that you couldn't brag or you couldn't be happy with your success, because then it would hurt other people. And that's just, just a little bit. My father and I had a difficult relationship at best. And when I was 14 years old, my parents were going through a divorce. And my father came over on Father's Day to take us out to brunch. And as he looked at me, he said, I'm going to go get my coat from the car. And he goes to grab his coat from the car. My 2 sisters are in the bathroom, our one little bathroom. Our house was about 800 square feet, by the way, with 3 girls and my mom. And so, my 2 sisters are fighting out the bathroom. My dad goes to get his coat. My mom and I start walking out. And as I look over to my dad and grabbing his coat, I realized he hasn't grabbed a coat, but he's grabbed a gun. And he starts screaming at my mother, "You did this, you did this." And he fires once. And I start screaming, "What are you doing, Dad? What are you doing?" And he points the gun to me, cocks it, and I absolutely think I'm next. And with my mother's literally dying breath, she sees that gun in my face and screams, "No, don't." And my father, realizing my mother's alive, turns the gun to her when it's loaded and shoots her a second time. And that second bullet goes to my mother's abdomen and out her back and lands in the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I hear is, and then my father runs right next to me, and I'm literally like 2 to 3 feet away, puts the gun to his head and fires. So in a matter of 2 to 3 minutes, I was the sole witness to my father murdering my mother and committing suicide in front of me. And when that happened, I divided in two. Like, there was a part of me that I showed to the world and a part of me that I kept to myself. And the part of me that showed to the world is I still got straight A's in school. I got a full scholarship to college, which, by the way, after the first quarter I lost, but that's another story. And I got straight A's in school, and I was class president. And, I just pretended I was fine. And also at the time I was planning on being a minister. So of course I forgave my father right away. But inside, I felt deep shame and blamed myself for their death, because I was the only one that physically could have stopped it. I was the only one that could physically have kicked my father or grabbed the gun or jumped in front of my mother or said some magical word to my father to get him to wake up,
Right.
And that none of that happened, right? The bullets fired, my mother's dead, my father's dead, and I'm still standing. And you can call it survivor's guilt, you can call it whatever you want, but what I did is, in that moment, I realized that I did not have a right to be happy, because how can you be happy when you watched your mother die? Like, how, I don't even understand. Like, for 20 years, this lasted, by the way, for 20 years, it was like, I took away my right to happiness, because who am I to be happy after this? Like, you can't be happy, right?
Right.
So, I maintained my like good girl thing for 3 to 4 years. And then I went into college and moved away, and nobody knew my story. And that's when I started really acting out and losing it, drinking every night, doing things that I will not mention on this podcast. But let's just say I acted out in all the ways, and I was rageful, like I was enraged. And, so one minute sober, fine. The next minute drunk, rageful. And that was the beginning actually of my healing journey, because letting my rage out, even though it was attacking other people, which I have apologized for numerous times,
Right.
It was my first time I was allowed to let rage out. And, it really took me 20 years. And on the 20th anniversary of my parents' death, I did a forgiveness ceremony and a release ceremony and a surrender. And that was the beginning of me understanding that it was fear. And it came to me through a spiritual experience about fear. It was gifted to me about the understanding how fear works. And when I was gifted that, I also understood that my job was to share it. And that's why it took me like 6 months to own it, because I was like, you've got the wrong person, buddy. I just tried to kill myself a few months ago.
Right. This is not me. You keep moving, keep it moving.
Right. So, for me, recognizing that my father killed my mother because he was afraid. And my mother stayed with my father for 20 years, even through the emotional abuse and physical abuse she endured, because she was afraid. And, there's so many things I can look at my life and go, wow, if I really am honest with myself, I was afraid. That is why I'm so devoted to it, because I just see the pain and struggle and suffering that people feel on a daily basis. And, they're smart, they're educated, they're doing hard work, but they're not happy and satisfied and content and joyful and peaceful and trusting themselves and loving themselves and believe in themselves, all because fear has their way with them. And again, fear is part of our neurobiology. So you just have to know how to work with fear in order to transcend it. And this isn't taught in high school. This isn't taught in junior high. I never learned this.
Right.
And so it's my devotion. It is my job. It is my honor. It is my mission.
And every time I've heard you tell this story several times, and I tell you every time the goosebumps come. It's never a moment that I've heard you tell this story and I didn't feel this story. for those people listening, they would hear this and say, oh my gosh, absolutely. I completely understand your journey and why this work is important to you. And I'm wondering, I always say that radical is relative, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
Yes.
we all have different experiences, and sometimes we don't see how really connected we are. And so over the time that you've been working with your clients and working with people on this message of fear, what are some other areas? You talked about you didn't give yourself permission to be happy. You became a martyr. You carried this cross and allowed it to basically suck the life out of you. What are some other experiences so that people can see that you have to be carrying some things in your life? You want to say, oh, wow, Rhonda, that's terrible, but that's not me.
Yeah.
That demonstrates that, yes, this could possibly be you.
Oh my gosh. I can't think of a moment that fear isn't on patrol, so to speak. But I mean, just some success stories, people have taken, come to my workshop, Fearless Foundation workshop, or they've taken the online course version, Fearless Living Training Program. And, the testimonials are like, oh my God, I lost 21 pounds effortlessly and I wasn't even trying to lose weight. Oh, by the way, I've got testimonials of people that, got married, because of fearless living. I have a couple that they were divorced. The husband discovered me, started following fearless living, started doing fearless living, asked his ex-wife after their divorce to, listen to me, some tape or something. And she was like, okay. And they ended up doing some fearless living work together, and they are now back together and the happiest couple you know. And so couples tell me all the time, oh my God, fearless living saved our marriage. Single people get married, you lose weight, you start businesses. I just worked with a woman who was the CEO of a company for 20 years, making $1 million a year, now is off on her own, building her own empire. And she hired me because she said, there is nobody on the planet that can get me to have an insight and a realization and put me into action faster than you can. She goes, every session I have with you is, it blows her mind. So she was having trouble raising funds, and she was building a team of her own. And we had in 6 sessions, she was on her way, it was boom, 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 boom. So, I work with executives, I work with single mothers, I work with, you want to open a business, you want to triple your income, I can't think of a place, I can't think of a area of life, building friendships, building connection, feeling like you belong, starting to trust yourself, giving yourself permission to be happy, doing the things that are getting your voice back, starting to speak up, learning how to put boundaries in place, how to love yourself. What does love mean? What is my purpose? Because purpose is fraught with fear, because so many people think their purpose is this secret thing that somehow is
hiding from you.
Hiding, and it's right in plain sight, but fear doesn't let you see it, right? So people come to me to find their purpose, and they want to focus their passion. You name it. I can't. And then I'm starting over. Of course, I've done 600 episodes of reality television, so there is literally. I've worked with hoarders. I can't think of one thing I haven't worked with.
In those situations, you talked about your moment when you realized that your father was in fear, your mother was in fear.
Yeah.
Because of that, they had certain behaviors and actions.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about those testimonials, that marriage that got back together, that business that flourished, what were some of the ahas that people had that they could say, oh my gosh, I was actually fearful of this, or this experience happened, and I didn't realize how much it impacted me?
Well, I think one of the things is that we can just talk about, fears that we already know, people talk about fear of rejection, fear of success, fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of change, right? Fear of intimacy, fear of loneliness, so there's so many. Mm-hmm. If you look up fear and say the different fears there are hundreds of little tiny fears that occupy our souls. And we want to start flushing those out, right? We want to start cleaning and starting to process and move through those fears. So I think a big one is that, fear wants you to trust it rather than trust yourself. Fear wants you to trust it rather than trust yourself. And because your past has for most of us, bitten us in the butt, and we've made quote unquote decisions we regret. That regret and the disappointment of our life infuses fear with power that says, see, I've really got your back here. I'm really the person and the thing you should trust, not your intuition, not, God, not your soul's desire, but I'm the one that has gotten you through all this safely, because it has. It got you through safely, because fear wants you to keep you the same, stuck, and small, because that's the only way it can keep you safe. Because fear's only job is to keep you safe, and it only can keep you safe if you're in the known. And freedom equals the unknown. So, so one of the things is that people don't give, like one of the exercises I give all my clients is acknowledgments. I just ask you to start acknowledging yourself. Start acknowledging yourself for every time you take a small step, every time you make movement. And one of the things my clients have to work through is that most people don't acknowledge themselves unless it's perfect, unless it's under a certain time frame, unless it happened the way they think it should. Otherwise, they take away their right for acknowledgement. So, we're taking away our rights all the time to bathe in our own glory and to bathe in our power and to bathe in our trust. We take it away all the time, and we have to make a decision to go, okay, wait a minute. I just took a risk, i.e., let's just use a simple example about a woman or a man wanting to find love. Let's just use a simple example. And let's just say they haven't dated for 12 years. And I say to them, okay, great, you're going to start smiling at strangers, right? Like just smile at strangers. And just smiling at strangers for somebody who hasn't dated in 12 years, and then moving into smiling at attractive men or women, whoever you're attracted to, and then starting small talk will bring up all their fears. And they will hear like that negative self-talk. They will be like, oh my God, what are they going to think of me? Oh my God, oh my God. And that negative self-talk is pointing to you, pointing out to you. And by the way, it's pointing out to you that is, I'll just go back a minute. That negative self-talk is part of the voice of fear. And some of us hear it as a voice, like I do, and some of it feel it in a body sensation, and some of us feel it in emotions. So you might hear fear differently. But how much time of your daily life are you listening to your fear rather than listening for the true place within yourself to move forward?
And I hope people really caught what you just said. The first powerful exercise that I believe everyone listening should do today is the acknowledgement exercise. There are many things that are going well in your life. There are many things, many steps that you've taken over the years that demonstrate that you are equipped and capable and smart enough to make those next steps. And making that acknowledgement gives you energy and it boosts your confidence. And I also love what you said. I always say small successes beget other small successes. And then those small successes beget more confidence, which causes you to take maybe a little bit bigger.
That's right.
Success. And that gets you more confidence. And sometimes we discount small beginnings. Sometimes we discount what we're actually doing. Again, radical is relative. And so for someone to smile at an attractive man, we're not asking you to talk to him. We're not asking you to take him out on the street. We're not asking you to flirt. All we're saying is smile. That can be terrifying.
That's right.
It may come easy for someone else. My gosh, darn it, the moment you smile and you move past that man, you better do your happy dance. You better high five. Like, that's right. Y'all see that? I did that.
And that's right, Doreen. It's like, because of that perfectionism and procrastination and anxiety and overwhelm and worry and, all those lovely fear responses, is we don't give ourselves credit because, again, credit, like you said, is relative, right? Credit is only given when they think they deserve it. And I'm saying forget deserve, forget the word deserve, forget the word reward, because punishment comes with reward, reward comes with punishment. So get rid of reward, get rid of punishment, get rid of deserve, and say, did I do it or did I not? Well, you did it. That's all that matters. I don't care how well you did it. I don't care how messy you did it. I don't care if it was halfway done. I don't care if you did it 10%. Did you do it? And then you acknowledge, like, you know what, I did it. 10% only, but hey, I did it. That's all I care about, because just like you said, acknowledgements build confidence. Confidence builds momentum. it builds courage, and you are able to keep going. And when you build that momentum up, you can take, like you said, and as I say all the time, bigger risks. And then you're going to start feeling some freedom. You're going to start feeling some breeze around your hair and neck and body, right? You're going to start feeling some freedom. And when that freedom starts happening, fear's going to come back in and go like, well, who do you think you are? What do you think? You're going to get all that freedom? What are you, crazy? And it'll try to shut you down, because you having a little bit of freedom, fear might give it to you, but you get another speck of freedom. Fear's like, oh yeah, she's getting crazy now. She's getting crazy now. Like, let's shut her down. And you've got to know how fear shows up for you so that you can identify it and you don't get tricked by it. It's like you have to know something, you have to identify it so you don't get tricked. And that's why I do, another thing that I ask my clients to do is list their fear responses. I want to know every way that you respond out of fear, every way. So one of my biggest impatience, I get really impatient when I'm in fear. Yeah, impatience is a fear response. You're impatient, you're in a fear response. You know, are you thinking something's going to be taken away? Are you thinking that you're treated unfairly? Are you thinking that you don't get respect? Like, you getting impatient is a sign that you are in fear. So one of my things is impatience. So the minute I'm impatient, I go, okay, wait a minute. I'm in fear right now. I got to back myself up. I've got to slow it down. I've got to ask myself some questions to get myself clear, and then I can move forward again. But I do not act impatiently. You know, I don't keep moving forward impatiently, because I know it is not going to get me the results I want, and I am not going to be I'm not going to be proud of how I act, and I know it's going down bad. I know it, right?
What I love about this conversation is all of the ways that we can begin to recognize where we're being fear-driven. So you talked about impatience. I'm sure there's also things around anger,
yep,
and argumentative, and being dismissive. Like, all of these.
And not putting boundaries up. Some good things. Being a people pleaser, not putting boundaries up. Saying yes when you want to say no. All that is fear responses.
Yes. And fear of being judged, fear of what people will think,
yep,
and fear of what will happen, as you mentioned earlier, to my current circle if I truly step into who I was created to be.
Yep.
And that can be one of the biggest fears of all, because we don't want to disappoint people out of fear.
That's right.
We want to abandon people. We don't want to leave people.
That's right.
And one of the things that I've become really big on is living in the land of and. And I think if people can begin to choose to say and instead of or, you'll begin to make progress. I can be amazing and keep my family intact.
Yep.
I can have peace and joy and take risk.
That's right.
And make good money.
That's right.
So many times our fears lead us to believe that we have this choice to make. Well, if you do that, I don't know about this.
Well, it also adds like feelings, Doreen. Like, so I can be sad and I can keep going forward.
Yes.
You know, I can grieve and I can love myself, right? Because the other thing fear does is take away your permission to feel. So if you're a logical person, you're all in your head, or if you're someone that indulges, quote unquote, and I hate to use that word, but just for lack of a better word, indulging your feelings, i.e. it's all about feelings, those two are fear responses. So just giving yourself permission to grieve, and you can be happy while you're grieving. And some people can't even wrestle their head around that.
Right.
You know, I can be loving and grieve. So it's not only I can be successful and have a happy marriage. It's also feelings, just feelings, giving ourselves permission or need. I have a need for respect, and I can say no, right?
Exactly. And so when people listening are now going, oh my gosh, I have been in fear and have just called it these sexy other names like, you know, procrastination and a straight shooter, a straight talker, you know, all those little words that we like to use that make us kind of feel better about ourselves. But now we're discovering this is something deeper. So one exercise you gave was the acknowledgement exercise. What is another step that our listeners can take to help them peel back some of these layers and make progress in managing their fears?
Oh, I'd love to give you another one. So just to back up with acknowledgments, I want you to write it this way. Today I acknowledge myself for, and I want you to acknowledge, like I said, any small step. So today I acknowledge myself for, and acknowledgments are all about you. Okay. They're not about anybody else. They're about you. Today, I acknowledge myself for anytime you take a stretch, risk, and die. And I want to give your listeners a something special today. But before I do that, let me share one more exercise. There is a phrase that one of the key phrases for me that keeps me centered, grounded, and in peace is, am I making it up or is it a fact? Am I making it up or is it true? Am I making it up or is it a fact? So for instance, let's say I go into a networking meeting. Let's say I'm building my business. I'm going into a networking meeting and I don't know anybody. And so, it's natural to have a little like, oh my God, I don't know anybody, right? And so you walk in and the first person you look at, kind of turns away, doesn't give you a big smile, right? A lot of people in that moment would judge the whole room and go, these people aren't my people. I don't belong here. And I love when people use that. I don't belong here. These aren't my people. And I'm like, really? How did you know that? I just knew. No, you actually didn't know. Fear told you that to keep you from networking. So no, I don't know about I think that's a big lie you're telling yourself, right? So one of the things that I ask myself, so let's say I'm in the network meeting and the person doesn't smile at me, the first person I see, and so they look away and I'm like, these aren't my people. The first question I ask myself is, am I making it up or is it a fact? And you know what? When I ask myself the question, 99.99999, I know I'm making it up. Now, don't get me wrong, Doreen. My clients will argue with me. Clients will come to me, oh, my boss doesn't like me. I go, well, you're making it up or is it a fact? No, I just know. I know they don't like me. I just know it. I go, has your boss said to you, I don't like you? Well, no, he would never say that, but I could just tell. I go, what if you're wrong? Like, what if you are dead wrong? And what if you somehow represent that person's fear and you remind them of their mother, their father, their brother, their sister, and it has nothing to do with you and they're just working out their shit, right? What if it has nothing to do with you? And what about acting as if they like you because they haven't told you they don't? Right. And they're looking at me going, well, but. So I go, you are changing the way you work. You're changing your behavior. You're changing how you respond. You're changing the way who you are because you have made up a story based on your boss's behavior that he doesn't like you or she doesn't like you. I go, that is completely manufactured.
Yes. Unverified, undocumented.
Yep.
Something that indicates that the story that you've made up in your head actually true.
And then people quit their jobs. They quit their jobs over this. They lose their self-esteem and self-confidence all because of a story they made up about somebody.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart, Doreen. That just breaks my heart.
That's good. And this process, when you talk about the acknowledgement exercise, when you talk about, is this true? Taking a step back, asking yourself the question, how do I know this? Is this a fact? It means that you have to be patient. You have to be willing to stop.
Yep.
Take a step back, examine, evaluate, ask yourself some tough questions.
That's right.
You can't just fly through this. I talk about personal transformation in a sense that this is the hardest work you will ever do. Getting to know you and getting to know why you believe what you believe, why you say what you say, why you do what you do is not only hard, but it's terrifying.
Yep.
Look in the mirror and face that one person that has the ability to either keep us where we are or move us way beyond what we could ever hope or dream.
I am with you 100%. You're so eloquent. I agree 100%. And, it takes your willingness to be awake and aware. And what I say all the time is slow is the new fast. Slow is the new fast. Slow is the new fast, Rhonda Britten. Slow is the new fast. Like the slower you go, the faster your results will come. But just like you said, Doreen, you gotta slow down. Because if you are responding quickly, then that's your amygdala and hippocampus and your fear response, and you're reacting. And when you react, that is fear, period, end of story, period, end of story. Like, period, end of story. And so I know people always ask me at this moment, like, well, what about physical fear? What about if I'm in an elevator and I get the feeling like the man is, going to hurt me? I go, that's your instinct for survival, okay? Your physical instinct of survival. Listen to it.
Right.
But this is the thing about fear. Fear doesn't know the difference. The way we're wired is fear doesn't know the difference between a physical fear and an emotional fear. So your fear of jumping, out of a plane or doing something quote unquote risky, bungee jumping, in your body and brain and heart is exactly the same as you tripling your income, or you falling in love, or you getting married, or you losing weight. It is the same process.
Powerful to know. Yes, absolutely. Well, Rhonda, I knew this conversation would be good. And I am thrilled that you said yes to being actually my very first interview, my very first guest on the Radical Success Podcast. I couldn't have asked for a better person or a better topic. And I know you said that you had something for our listeners. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, it's an exercise called Stretch, Risk, or Die. And what it's going to do, it's going to help you understand, it's going to change the way, let's put it this way, it's going to change your to-do list forever. And it's going to change the way that you create strategy, make tasks, implement, because the exercise helps you understand the emotional risk involved and not just like barreling through something. You know how you have your to-do list, Doreen, and you're like, okay, well, I'm now going to get financially, fiscally responsible. It's tax time and I'm going to do really good. So I'm going to create a budget and I'm going to call my accountant and I'm going to get a bookkeeper and I'm going to, all these things that you say you're going to do. And you have this list of 10 things and we all do it, right? We hit 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we skip 5, we skip 6, and we do, right?
The check marks by it. Check.
Yep. Right. And those check marks keep on skipping the same things. Well, when you do the stretch, risk, and die exercise, you're going to start understanding what the underlying, the quantity and the extreme and like the scale, I would say the 1 to 10 scale of how much fear is stopping you from taking that action. Because you're smart enough, you're educated enough, you know you can do that task. You want to put it on your task list if you didn't know you could do it on some level. But you're not doing it. And that's where we beat ourselves up the most. So I'm going to give your listeners, anyone listening right now, you're going to be able to go and get a free course. It's a free mini course that is going to take you through 3 videos. And it's going to talk a little bit about my story. And it's going to share in depth about the stretch, risk, and die exercise. And it's also going to give you worksheets and templates to help you do the stretch, risk, and die exercise so you can really see how you can change the way you take action and do it from a fearless perspective rather than fear. So where you find it is fearlessliving.org/risk, R-I-S-K. So fearlessliving.org/risk, R-I-S-K. And when you go there, you're just going to be asked for your name and email, and then it will send you, we need your email to give you access to the course, and then you'll receive a welcome email, and that welcome email will have your access to the Learning Center so that you can go in and get this free course that I'm gifting you.
I love it. And we're also going to put that link in the show notes. So if you're driving right now, if you didn't have a chance to jot that down, no worries. We'll have that link for you. And Rhonda, if people want to connect with you on social, online, where can they find you?
They can find me at Rhonda Britten, RHONDABRITTEN, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, it's all under Rhonda Britten. And then my website is fearlessliving.org. And on the front page of fearlessliving.org, there's actually my 25 tricks of fear. So if you're interested in your fear responses and really want to get a list of fear responses, that 25 tricks of fear actually gives you examples of fear responses and how they operate. So you can go to fearlessliving.org and grab that as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Rhonda, for being here today. I am a firm believer that if we can manage the fear and if we can understand why we have it and how we can move past it to manage it better, because we all have it. It doesn't go away, as you said. We are constantly in management mode. I knew you were the person to have this conversation. And so any final thoughts you have for our listeners?
There is nothing wrong with you. 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 It is just fear. And when you start seeing fear for what it is, and that it does love you, it's just doing its job. When you really understand that, you will be set free and you will start trusting yourself. You'll have more peace of mind. You'll have confidence, and you are enough. You are enough. This is not your fault. No one showed us this. No one told us this. No one explained this to us. So there is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. And I'm here to support you. I have your back, just like Doreen does, to help you move through this tunnel of understanding how fear works for you so you can get on the other side and start transcending fear, mastering fear, saying, thank you, fear, but no thank you. I got this one. And you will then get your life and have your life back. You will take back your life and your power.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Be fearless.
Thanks for listening to the Radical Success Podcast. We would love to hear from you. Be sure to head over to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Until next time, stay radical.